Well, it's like you didn't know, Super Bowl Sunday. And Super Bowl 56. I'm pretty sure that the only thing in our whole culture where we use Roman numerals is the Super Bowl. And old Bible commentaries still use Roman numerals. So I've stayed pretty good on the Roman numerals there at 56. Just to put things in perspective, I watched the first one, Super Bowl I. And that was in Los Angeles at the Coliseum. So interesting today, they're in LA. Not the same stadium, but the same city. And each year, I remember when they did that, it was the Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And it was the NFL and the AFL. There were two separate leagues, the American Football League, the National Football League. Now it's the National Football Conference, NFC and AFC, American Football Conference. But it was two separate leagues. They were competing against each other. The idea was the NFL was older and so much better that they could just blow out those young upstarts. And they did for a couple of years, and then they figured out that the AFL plays football too. And even that first game wasn't completely terrible. The Packers won 35-10. And the trophy that they give out today is still called the Lombardi Trophy. And it's named after Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi, my guy. And I grew up with him, and I was a big Packer fan. Bart Starr. I read in about 1968, 69, somewhere around there, the book Instant Replay that was written by Jerry Kramer, who was the right guard of the Green Bay Packers. And in order for the Packers to play in the first Super Bowl, they had to beat the Cowboys. And the Cowboys back then, that's Tom Landry and Roger Staubach? Yeah, I think was the, is that right? Who was the, who was it?
Don Meredith.
Don Meredith, okay. So in that era though, and they played 1967 on December 31st. It was 13 below zero at the beginning of that game. By the time the fourth quarter, with just a few seconds left, they were on the 2-yard line. And the Packers were threatening to score when they decided they were out of timeouts and with about 10 seconds, 15 seconds left, and they decided to do a running play. Now, y'all know enough about football that if you do a running play and aren't successful with that few seconds, that the game's over. Where a passing play, you can have an incomplete, maybe 2 or 3 passes. But they're on the 2-yard line, and Jerry Kramer found a rut in the ice and blew out Pugh, who was his defensive guy he had to beat. And Bart Starr ran a quarterback sneak into the end zone, dove into the end zone, and the Packers beat the Cowboys just barely in that ice bowl. By the time they made that play, it was 18 below zero in Green Bay. So, holy mackerel. They had a game a few weeks ago. Was that Buffalo game? I don't remember. That was supposed to be rival, but it didn't actually get as cold as the Packers. By the way, that didn't wind chill. That's the actual air temperature in there. But this is Vince Lombardi. And Vince Lombardi was a builder of men. He was one of the greatest coaches ever. His record is incredible, his winning percentage. And back in the Packers' heyday, and he died early, unexpectedly. And they named the trophy for the Super Bowl after Vince Lombardi. And let me give you some of Vince Lombardi guiding his football players to success. These are some of his quotes. Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. Kind of reminds me of the old Native American proverb that says, I'd rather aim at the moon and hit an eagle than aim at an eagle and hit a rock. That's pretty good stuff, right? Lombardi said, it's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get up. He said, the harder you work, the harder it is to surrender. He said, the difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength, not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will. So here is a great coach who is giving us advice, actually giving players advice on how to be successful. Obviously, he was able to inspire his players to play exceedingly well. Obviously, you have to have the good players to do that, but he had that and inspired them and became one of the greatest coaches of all time. Don't we all want to be winners? Have any of you said, no, I've set the goal of my life to be an utter loser? Right? No, we want to be winners. We want to be successful, don't we? And yet, here's what's true. We need guidance to be successful. Which leads me to, let's get some advice, guidance from the rich and famous about how to be successful. All right? Rich and famous going to give us advice on how to be successful. Now, these people have been successful. Their combined net worth of these 8 people, I'm going to quote here. The combined net worth of these people is over $250 billion. So we're talking about some folks with some wherewithal here. So let's see what they have to say. Obviously, they've been successful. What are they going to give to us? What do they think? All right, here's Richard Branson. True success should be measured by how happy you are. Brilliant. Oprah Winfrey. To be used in the greater service to life. Okay, that's good. President Obama. The difference you make in people's lives. Cool. Thinking of others. Arianna Huffington. Money and power. Now she actually listed, in addition to money and power. So to be successful, you need money and power. Do you follow this? I believe this would have been a blind spot to her in this quote. She wouldn't have quite realized, but that's her presupposition. I'm not trying to impugn her, I'm just saying. In addition to money and power, you also need well-being, wisdom, wonder, and giving. Bill Gates, this is the richest man in the world, right? Or at least one of the richest in the world. We ought to really get something good from Bill. Here's what he says. Feel like you made a difference. Like inventing something or raising kids or helping people in need. Really? Warren Buffett. This one's good. I measure success by how many people love me. All right. Good. Mark Cuban. Waking up in the morning with a smile on your face. Awesome, because tomorrow morning, by his definition, I can be successful. I just have to remember to smile first thing, right? That's all we have to do. How about Maya Angelou? Success is liking yourself. Yeah, you should be comfortable in your own skin, no doubt about it. By the way, what do you think, guys? Is that pretty brilliant? But do you understand? That's kind of like the best. Really? Okay. I think of Albert Ian Gray. I heard this years ago, and I want you to think about this. This has got some really cool stuff. Albert Ian Gray wrote the book, The Common Denominator of Success. It's a small book. And he wrote it, and what he did is he determined that his job was to lead other people in being successful. And then it dawned on him he didn't know what successful was and what it takes to be successful. He was himself successful, but he didn't know why or how. What do you do? So he took some time to really research and study and learn what was, his angle was, what is the common denominator of success? This would be something that all successful people have in common. It is the one single thing that determines whether someone is successful or not. And here's what he says. The common denominator of success, the secret of success of everyone who has ever been successful, lies in the fact that the person formed the habit of doing things that others don't like to do. So here it is. You want to be successful? Do what you don't like to do. Now, there's good stuff in that. I'm not mocking that. I'm just saying, so success is me doing what I don't like to do. I don't like to take the garbage out. So babe, I'm going to become successful. But I don't think that's quite what he means. But you get the idea, like how that's going to work. God wants to guide us to success. We've been journeying through Psalm 119, and I'm excited this morning because one of my favorite verses in the Bible, much less in Psalm 119, is going to come jumping out at us here. And so I want to start like we've been doing. We're going to read 3 letters. Remember how this is broken down? It is an acrostic where there are 22 stanzas of 8 lines each in Hebrew, with each line beginning with a successive letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So today we're going to read Mem, Nun, and Samek. So that would be M, N, and S, we could say it in English. And these 3 letters, so there's 24 verses altogether, we're going to look at 3 times 8. And let's just listen to the Word of God. Try to concentrate on it. We'll put it up here on the screen, a verse at a time. It may be easier for you to just close your eyes, whatever works for you, to actually listen and concentrate on God's Word as we read these passages in Psalm 119, written by David 3,000 years ago, a man after God's own heart, talking about the power and impact of God's Word. Remember that when we read this, God's Word to David amounted to 9 Bible books. The Torah, the 5 books of Moses, plus Job, Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. That's it. That's David's Bible. A lot of stuff after that, right? And yet, that's what he's talking about. Just that portion, the Torah alone, just the 5 books of Moses, would be more than he could meditate on the rest of his life. By the way, don't miss the fact that Jesus is the living Torah. In the beginning is the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shined in the darkness, and the darkness could not overpower it. Pretty amazing, right? And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. The living Torah walked among us. You getting that? So be real careful when you dismiss those Old Testament books thinking they're not relevant. Of course, you all won't do that because I'd scold you. But many Christians do and just kind of ignore God's Word. That's what David's talking about when he's talking about this. And that's how much richness he found in just those few Bible books. And how powerful that is for us today. Okay, let's read. Psalm 119, beginning in verse 97. Oh, how I love your instructions. I think about them all day long. By the way, I just got to say something here. If we think of God's instructions like the speed limits, laws, that way, don't go too fast. School zone, 25 miles an hour. Would you say, oh, how I love the speed limit laws. I meditate on them all day long. Maybe what David is talking about is how he can learn of the character of his God through what God has commanded. Did that resonate with you? Pretty strong, right? That's what he's talking about. All right, 98. Your commandment make me wiser than my enemies, for they are my constant guide. Yes, I have more insight than my teachers, for I am always thinking of your laws. I am even wiser than my elders, for I have kept your commandments. By the way, if you are obeying God, you are wiser than people who are not obeying God, no matter what their age is. Verse 101. I have refused to walk on any evil path so that I may remain obedient to your word. I haven't turned away from your regulations, for you have taught me well. How sweet your words taste to me. They are sweeter than honey. Your commandments give me understanding. No wonder I hate every false way of life. Your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path. I've promised it once, and I'll promise it again. I will obey your righteous regulations. I have suffered much, O Lord. Restore my life again, as you promised. Lord, accept my offering of praise and teach me your regulations. My life constantly hangs in the balance, but I will not stop obeying your instructions. The wicked have set their traps for me, but I will not turn from your commandments. Your laws are my treasure. They are my heart's delight. I am determined to keep your decrees to the very end. Is it your heart to run through the tape, honoring and obeying the Lord? Verse 113, this is Summit. I hate those with divided loyalties, but I love your instructions. You are my refuge and my shield. Your word is my source of hope. Get out of my life, you evil-minded people, for I intend to obey the commands of my God. Lord, sustain me as you promised, that I may live. Do not let my hope be crushed. Sustain me, and I will be rescued. Then I will meditate continually on your decrees. But you have rejected all who stray from your decrees. They are only fooling themselves. You skim off the wicked of the earth like scum. No wonder I love to obey your laws. I tremble in fear of you. I stand in awe of your regulations. I think we ought to keep Psalm 119 in the Bible. Pretty awesome stuff, right?
Yes, it is.
Think about that. All of that is David talking about the Word of God and how rich it is and how beautiful it is. Now, I believe there are people who are, they almost worship the Bible. That's not what we're talking about. You've heard me say, I don't study the Bible to know the Bible. I study the Bible to know the author. And if you're not doing the same, you're not making the right connection between God's Word. That's exactly what David is saying here. Because I meditate on your Word, I know you more intimately, Lord. I love you more. I desire you more because I get to know you through what you have communicated in your Word. David's not making it up. David's not having a warm, fuzzy feeling, which might have been heartburn, and assuming it's God telling him something new. He is paying attention to the Lord as what he has already communicated in his Word. That's why, if we will spend time really getting to know God through his Word, we will be able to pick out a counterfeit in a heartbeat.
That's right.
My understanding is that treasury agents that work in counterfeit dollars, the way they train them is to spend hours and hours and hours counting real money. And they get so familiar with the real that they can spot a fake in a heartbeat. And that's what we need to do. Get so familiar with God that when someone tells us something or says something to us about God, that we know whether that is consistent with who God is as we've studied in his Word. It's important to do. But in this, we're talking, David's talking about guidance. He talks about paths and being on the right path. And the Word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. We're going to talk about these verses in particular. But I want to get us thinking about God is trying to guide us to success. So I think that requires that we answer three questions. Number one, why do you want God's guidance? Now, hang on here with me. Hang on. I want to know God's will. Do you really? Why do you want God's guidance? I believe there's at least three answers. The first one is because I want to remain in the middle of God's will for my life. Good answer. But there's a couple other reasons why you might want to know God's will. One is because I'm curious to see what God wants me to do. And then C, so I can determine whether I want to do what God says. Oops. That gets in our space a little, doesn't it? I want to know God's will so I can decide whether I want to do it. I believe that that kind of attitude, the Lord won't be real clear to you about his will. That I believe that it starts with the desire to obey God no matter what. It's like the old preacher that got up and he was supposed to pray before the big meeting. And he walked up on stage, he walked out to the middle, and he started saying, yes, 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 come on, yes, 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 yes. Lord, you've heard our answer, now give us the question. That's the way to pray, isn't it? Lord, the answer's already yes. Now what's the question? That was David's attitude, and it's one that we have to get. So, why do you want to know? Why do you want God's guidance? You want to decide whether you want to do it, or have you already decided, I want to know God's guidance because I'm going to do it, no matter what. Even if it's hard, even if it's difficult, even if it doesn't give me what I think I want. I've already said yes, Lord. Really good stuff. Second question is, what is success? We've heard some people weighing in on it, right? The rich and famous told us, I don't know about you, but I came away from there going, eh. I mean, maybe that impressed you. A couple of them were, I don't know, but to me, like, really, that's all you got? So let me give you the definition of success out of the dictionary. Here's the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It is the fact of getting or achieving wealth, respect, or fame. Is that how you define success? Be careful. Be careful. Don't be too quick to just dismiss that one. Wealth, respect, and fame. Maybe that's one of the reasons why you post so much on social media. All right, now, Pastor Gary, now you're meddling. All I'm saying is, well, I mean, what are you looking for? How do you define success? Is that it? I would suggest you could have wealth, respect, and fame and be utterly unsuccessful in your own heart. The Oxford Dictionary calls it the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. Trying to accomplish an aim or a purpose. I'm successful when I achieve a goal. You get the idea? Does that do it? I remember in 1973, we had set a goal, Dad and I did, to have the top agency at our insurance company. And we achieved Agent of the Year, and we were Agency of the Year, and I went like, eh. I mean, they didn't even give us a plaque. They just let the company know it. So a few years later, 1977, we decided we'd set a goal again. We're going to be Agency of the Year. This is in the life insurance business. Agency of the Year, top performing agency. And they have the big banquet, and all the general agents and agents are there that were invited, the top producers, and they hand the trophy, actually trophy this time, to Stump and Stump. That was the name of our real brilliant name, right? Daddy. And Stump and Stump won Agency of the Year for our company in 1977. And I remember having that trophy there, and we're sitting at the big round table with the president of the company and the senior vice president of marketing. And I remember the whole time, their question was, so what's your plan for this coming year? What's your goal? What are you going to accomplish? What are you going to do for me? In other words, that's done. What are you going to do for me now? And I remember saying to myself, that's it? That's what I kind of expected that to be a little more exciting. That was it? And I walked away hollow from that. You've heard me tell the story when we built our custom home back in the business world. We had some money, and we built a custom home here in Castleton area. Beautiful home. And they brought in the furniture, this beautiful new custom home we had built, designed, actually drew it on a napkin and then transferred it over and got an architect and a builder. We had to pick out what kind of doorknobs to put in the house. Now that's a custom home. Do you understand? I mean, like, we have a house now that they just put in the doorknobs they put in. And, but, you know, back then, that was, so, anyway. And I remember they moved all the furniture in, moved in, we had a brand new refrigerator. We had all, a bunch of new furniture along with our existing furniture. The movers brought it in. The house is all in disarray. And Donna takes the kids and she says, I'm going to the grocery store to fill up the fridge. So she took the kids out and I'm doing some stuff and I'm tired and I sit down on the couch and I look across our lawn that was still dirt because they hadn't put the sod on yet. And I look across our lawn at a house across the street. And I thought, next time I want to build a house bigger than that one. I hadn't slept in this house yet. And it already wasn't enough. I wanted a Mercedes. I had Cadillacs and I wanted a Mercedes. So I buy a Mercedes one day. And we're at Worldwide Motors on North Meridian Street. And I go to pick it up. And I couldn't even sleep the night before. I was so excited. So I go there and I pick up this Mercedes and I pull out on Meridian Street. We lived up in the Castleton area, so if you know the city, I went north on Meridian to Fall Creek. I was going to turn right and head up toward Castleton. And I pull up in the right lane at Fall Creek and Meridian, and a 500 SEL Mercedes pulled up beside me. And I looked over at that, and I thought, that's what I really wanted. Are you guys getting this? God just taught me through the years that stuff is, it doesn't do it.
No.
So what they're saying, wealth and fame and all this stuff, is like, I got the fame, right? We won Agency of the Year. Whoopee-doo, that made like a big bump on the whole world of it. Who cares? What a minor little thing. I don't care if you win a Nobel Prize. It's not going to do it. Our definition of success matters. And so here's what God says. And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you? Now understand, this is God speaking to Israel, the people of Israel. Israel isn't yet in the land. This is Deuteronomy. So Moses and the children of Israel had wandered through the wilderness, and now they're getting, this is Deuteronomos, the second writing of the law. This is Moses redoing the law, the Torah, that story, giving the instructions again to make sure the children of Israel get it. And they're going to go in to possess the land before too long. They've been wandering for 40 years. Now he's writing the second giving of the law. And he's there, and God says, now what does God require of you? And this is of the people of Israel. It's to Israel. It is intended to Israel, but I believe it gives us an absolute clear understanding of what God would require of us as his people. And he says this: he requires only that you fear the Lord your God. Do you fear the Lord? The word fear means reverence. Do you revere the Lord? Are you in awe in his presence? Are you aware that you are but dust, and when you are entering into the presence of God, that he could absolutely wipe you off if he wanted? We're not talking about your buddy. Getting this? Do you revere the Lord? Do you respect him to the point of almost trembling in his presence? Not, are you afraid of him? But do you respect him and honor him to the point where it almost takes your breath away to think of being in his presence? Do you understand who I am, is what God's asking. Here's what I require of you, is that you understand who I am. We need to always balance that because of his Son, we have access to the Father, whereby Paul says we can call him Abba, Father. Papa. That is an incredible idea. So that, by the way, if you had a good relationship with your dad, and probably many of you did not, but if you did, you kind of understand that. I get how I can hang out with my dad and enjoy time with him. This last week I watched The Natural again. One of my favorite movies about Robert Redford and baseball. And there's a scene in there where he's kind of reminiscing and he said, "Oh, I wish Dad," and then he can't finish it. And then he says, "Man, I love baseball." And every time I see that line, I cry. Because it's connected my dad to baseball. Sorry. And I was telling Tommy, I know that's so silly to many of you. It just sounds so trite. But I was telling Tommy this week, because we watched that together, and I was saying to T, I was saying, you have no idea how much that is in the depth of my heart. Because I threw a baseball to my dad thousands and thousands of times. The hours and hours that he spent catching my throws and throwing them back to me. As we'd stand there and talk and visit. And so you have that with my dad in my heart. I have this incredible, reverence for my dad. And I could laugh with him, and I could joke with him, and I could always throw my arm around him. Never had to be afraid of him, and always feared him. Y'all get that? And praise God. I'm sorry if you didn't have that experience. I can't do anything about that. I just thank you, Lord. Thank you that I had a dad who loved me and cared about me and was a good dad in my life. That idea of reverencing and yet knowing is such a beautiful idea. And so he says, you must fear the Lord your God and live in a way that pleases him. Now here's what you got to know. I didn't always do what my dad wanted. And I'm not talking about disobedience. I'm talking about after I was an adult. I kept obeying Dad when it was time to leave my father and mother and cleave to my wife. You with me? And I kept obeying Dad. So I didn't always do what my dad asked me to do. Matter of fact, that created some tension because we're partners in business, and I had to kind of leave him at one point, and it made it really uncomfortable. And yet, God is not like that. Because he won't ask me to do something that would be harmful to me or that would not be best for me. Absolutely everything he commands. My objective is to please him and to love him and serve him with all your heart and soul. You love him and serve him with all your heart and soul. So that second question is, what is success? I think we just heard it in Deuteronomy 10:12. Fear the Lord, live in a way that pleases him, love and serve him with all your heart and soul. And if you will do that, your life will be successful. And that's because the third question we need to answer is who judges whether you're successful or not? Sorry, Facebook likes does not do that. That is not how you judge success. How much money you're making doesn't do it. How many goals you've achieved doesn't do it. But God is going to judge whether you're successful. Ecclesiastes 12:14. God will judge us for everything we do, including every secret thing, whether good or bad. 2 Corinthians 5:10. For we must all stand before Christ to be judged. We will each receive whatever we deserve for the good or evil we have done in this earthly body. Jeremiah 17:10. But I, the Lord, search all the hearts and examine secret motives. I give all people their due rewards according to what their actions deserve. Do you realize that in the end, the only one who will judge whether or not you've been successful is the Lord?
That's right. Amen.
And the people in this world that want to judge whether you're successful, they may think you're an utter failure from the world's perspective. Do you understand that Jesus would have been an utter failure from the world's perspective? At the end of his 3 years of ministry, he had at most 120 people who claimed him to be who he said he was. He never wrote anything other than wrote in the dirt. He never published anything. He never traveled around the world or anything outside of Israel. He went up to Tyre and Sidon, which is a little bit north. He never did anything. Then he gets executed as a criminal. And yet God exalted him with the name that is above every name. What is the name that is above every name? Hashem, the name. Is exalted him, a name above every name. And before him, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Amen. To the glory of God the Father. Maybe we let God determine what success is. David says this in 1 Kings 2. He says, observe the requirements of the Lord your God and follow all his ways. Keep the decrees, commands, regulations, and laws written in the law of Moses, that you will be successful in all you do and wherever you go. Solomon said this, here now is my final conclusion. Fear God, obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. How do you define success? I wish I could spend more time on this. I thought about this a lot this week, and what is success? I don't know how exactly to put it in words. Let me give you some ideas. I believe it is being at peace. I believe it's being fulfilled, satisfied. See, that house didn't satisfy me. That car didn't satisfy me. Agency of the year didn't satisfy me. They didn't in any way satisfy me. That which satisfies you completely. You're joyful, full of joy. You are content. Godliness with contentment is great gain. What would you add to that list? Being famous, being rich. You know, I think about, you hear about people winning the lottery, and I just want you to know that if I win the lottery, it'll be an ultra miracle, because that's one tax I've never paid. Now, you do what you want with your money between you and the Lord. I'm just saying, that would really be a miracle if I win the lottery. But you hear about someone winning, ridiculous amount of money, $50 million, $100 million in the lottery, and they think they're, oh my goodness, this is the greatest thing that ever happened. My brother-in-law, who is a financial advisor, tracked people who won the Indiana lottery. Most of them wind up bankrupt.
Right. That's right.
It's just interesting. It does sound fun, right? But do you understand you don't want $10 million or whatever number? Oh yeah, I don't have to. I'm just saying, no, you want what that will make you feel like. Do you follow? Might be security, or it might be prestige, or prominence, or possessions, or what, I don't know. You don't actually want that. That thing you think you want, when you get it, you realize that's not really what I wanted. I wanted the feeling that I thought that would bring me. They knew what success was. Verse 101, I have refused to walk on any evil path so that I may remain obedient to your word. The old rabbi said, I see sin as a dangerous pit and ruinous stumbling block. This is a little parable that is used in recovery. But I want to read this because this will give you an idea. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I am in the same place. It isn't my fault. It takes a long time to get out. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I fall in. It's a habit, but my eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I can get out immediately. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. I walk down a different street. Amen?
Amen.
Proverbs 4:25 says, "Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. Ponder the path of your feet, then all your days will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil." Stay on God's path.
Amen.
Don't turn to the right or to the left. Stay on God's path. And that brings us to verse 105. Maybe my favorite verse in Psalm 119. Your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path.
Yeah. Amen.
Rabbi Malbim says everyone needs two types of divine guidance. One, general, long-range guidance to establish goals and to determine the general direction your life should take. That is a light for your path. Looking forward, have a plan, figure it out. You need that kind of guidance from the Lord. Secondly, constant guidance to solve your immediate problems and to deliver yourself from the pitfalls of daily existence. A lamp to guide my feet. I always love, because this, on the title slide, I had a picture of a pathway along the edge of a mountain cliff. And I've always pictured being on that path at night. And there are two things I need in order to walk that path at night. I need a lamp to light my feet so I know where I'm standing. I want to be standing on solid ground, right? And I need enough light to take the next step. A lamp for my feet and a light for my path. Do you get that idea? Now, I've told you this story, and God showed me this when I was praying at one time about what the next step was before we started Onward. And at the time, God made it exceedingly clear, I will not tell you what the next step is. There's only one right next step, and that is to resign from your current position. But Lord, what about after that? I don't know what's next. I'm not going to tell you what's next. Or not, God doesn't know, but I didn't know. I'm not going to tell you what's next. I'm telling you take this right next step. But Lord, but what about then? You realize what I was saying is, I wanted the lamp for my feet, and I wanted my light for the next 3 or 4 steps. And God says, no, I'm only going to give you enough light for the next step. But Lord, that step's really scary. I know. And when you get there, I have a lamp for your feet and a light for your path. Now here's what the Lord revealed to me as I was going through that. The longer you walk with the Lord, the more mature you are, the less distance He's going to give you on that path with a light. In other words, it's like this. New Christians, He'll say, yeah, I'm going to give them the next 3 or 4 steps so that they know where they're headed, because they're really uncomfortable and they're not sure. But Gary, you've walked with me long enough. I don't need to give you the next step after this. You just trust me to take the next step. And then when you get there, I'll give you the next step. And when you get there, I'll give you the next step. Lord, that's really nerve-wracking. I think the Lord would say, it shouldn't be. You've been walking with me for a long time. So the less mature you are, maybe the more steps God will give you in the future. And the more mature you are, as you grow in maturity, maybe the Lord won't give you as many future steps. Maybe just one. Once you take that one, then I'll tell you what's next. Pretty amazing how the Lord did that. So how does God's Word guide us? Now listen. There's a concept called dead reckoning. I'm going to close with this idea. Dead reckoning. Dead reckoning is the process of calculating one's position, especially at sea or by air, can be, by estimating the direction and distance traveled rather than by using landmarks, astronomical observations, or electronic navigation methods. In other words, you go this way at such and such a speed for such and such a distance, then you turn this way for such and such a distance, then you turn that way for such and such a distance, and you should be able to plot where you are at that time. You get the idea? That's called dead reckoning. Charles Lindbergh used dead reckoning to fly the Spirit of St. Louis across the Atlantic to Paris on May 21st, 1927. Used dead reckoning to get to France. Once he got there, he could see landmarks and so on, but across the ocean, nothing. So he's flying so far this way, then he flies so far that way, then he flies so far this way, keeping track of that all the time, and he actually wound up where he wanted to be. Dead reckoning. Now listen. I believe that's how God guides us. Listen to this in that context. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. I know you know it. It's not a cliche verse. It's one of those powerful verses that help us know. And here's what he says. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. You catch the dead reckoning there? In all your ways acknowledge him. Pay attention to your ways. Focus on your way. Do you follow the person that's being navigated by dead reckoning? Has to really pay attention. When did I make the turn? How long am I flying? What speed am I flying? Therefore, when I make the next turn, I got to really be focused on what's going on in the cockpit right here, rather than looking at the long distance track. Do you follow the difference? Kind of head down, one step at a time, paying attention to the daily situation. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Think about how scary that is. I know of pilots that fly instrument only. It's too cloudy. They can't see a thing outside the cockpit. They're just trusting those instruments. We're hoping it's right, right? That's what God asks us to do, is to fly our lives using dead reckoning. Once in a while, it'll pop up a landmark that shows us, proves to us we're on the right path. But a lot of times, it's like we're in a hood. We're just paying attention, doing the right next thing, doing what God wants, and he is directing our paths. So what? Well, first, I want to ask some questions. I want you to think about these. Are you allowing God to lead you, or are you just doing what you want? Which guidance are you looking for right now? Lamp or light? Well, I want the light for my feet, or for my path, because I want to see where I'm going. God says, no, you need to know your feet are in the right spot first. And then I'll give you the next step. Maybe the next couple of steps. What have you been pursuing instead of wholeheartedly following God's word? You know, we want to know, God, do you want me to take that job? Do you want me to do this thing? Should I get into this relationship? Should I buy that car? And you pray about those things. And I believe God says, if you're in the habit of following me on the day-to-day, head down, dead reckoning, those things will just kind of solve themselves every time. It'll be easy. I also believe God would say this. Why are you so interested in what my will is about whether you take this job when you haven't been interested in my will on a daily basis, obeying me? Why are you not interested in loving your wife the way Christ loved the church? Or raising your children in the discipline and instruction of the Lord? Or being honest in all your dealings? Why all of a sudden you want to know whether I want you to take that job? No, I actually want you to do these things. That one I'm not interested. I'm really interested in these things. That gets in our space a little, doesn't it? Just remember, when I'm pointing at you, by whatever I'm saying, I got 3 times as many coming back to me. God's word is double-edged, so it cuts me when it's cutting you. How about, what would would you surrender? That your definition of success, what part of your concept of success would you surrender to the Lord today? And saying, Lord, I'm just handing this up. I'm giving this out. I had an opportunity this morning to try to do that with all my heart. It's just to say, here, I'm laying this down. Do you follow that idea? My definition, my idea, my plan. Just lay it down. Say, Lord, I want what you want. And I believe that you can speak by the Holy Spirit through the Bible, through prayer, through circumstances, and through your people to reveal yourself and your purposes and your way. That comes from Dr. Blackaby, Henry Blackaby, who wrote Experiencing God. What if we were all committed to allowing God to guide us to success? What if we spent some time this week actually thinking, God, why don't you give me a better understanding of what success is? What if I quit listening to what the world said was success and I listened more to what you said about success? And then, Lord, you gave me the heart to just do it.
Amen.
What do you say? Father, just thank you for your word. Thank you for the way it gets in our space. Lord, we just pray that we would allow you to define success and to direct our lives toward what you think success is for us. May we be ready to lay down our own agenda and our own plan and our own ideas. And Lord, allow you to reshape our thinking, reshape our whole plan to be consistent with what you desire. For Lord, we truly believe that that's the only way we will ultimately be successful, is if we allow you to guide us to success. Thank you, Lord, that in Christ we are winners. Paul said we are more than conquerors through Christ who loved us. Lord, thank you for that. Just bless us today as we pursue what you called us to do. That your word would be a lamp for our feet and a light for our path. We're trusting you to do that this week. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. Love you guys. Have a great day.